So I understand we have an audience in the room and also an audience online. So I think we can start our event now. And certainly other fellows will join in a few minutes and during the first 10 minutes of our meeting. But let us start these events. So good morning, everyone. I'm Benjamin Haute-Couverture. I am a senior research fellow at the Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique close to Paris, at Levallois-Perret, in France. So thank you very much for being with us this morning. This is a hybrid event. Some of us then being on site in the premises of the FRS and others being online. So la Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique, FRS, and the EDESA Center for Non-Proliferation, ODCNP, have the great pleasure to launch this morning presentation of a book which is entitled Russia's War on Ukraine, the Implications for the Global Nuclear Order. This is a new volume which was edited by Adérito Vicente, Polina Sinovets, and Julien Théron, and this book was published recently by Springer Nature. And we have the pleasure to welcome this morning the two editors, Adérito and Polina, who will introduce the book they edited, along with one of their authors, Irina Maximenko, who is with us online. Bonjour, Irina. And I wish, of course, I could be with you physically, but the weather today, unfortunately, makes it absolutely impossible because where I live, in Chantilly, which is in the north of Paris, this morning it was minus 14 degrees outside, and it was simply impossible to move either by train or by car. And by the way, I understand from Polina that our good colleague Adérito also had some issues with his train this morning. So this is the reason why he will join us a little later, possibly in 20 or 30 minutes or so, but we will manage and we will have two good speakers before he can join us. So as a director of the OCDNP, this is not the first time that Polina has edited a strategic book on for Springer publishing, whether on arms control in Europe or more specifically on deterrence matters. And by the way, I had the privilege of being one of the authors of the previous book edited by Polina 2 years ago. And thanks to Polina and thanks to the OCDNP, with which the FRS has had a close and very friendly relationship for many years now, academic research into strategic nuclear issues is very much alive and also enables, which is absolutely great, young researchers to take part in this very timely debate. So, Polina, your book consists of 5 parts. First part dealing with the new challenges and threats to global nuclear order. And here, 3 issues are addressed, which is the crisis of global security architecture, the irregular nuclear warfare, and the particular issue of Russia's nuclear blackmail. A second part of the book addresses missile and disruptive technologies. It is written by other good colleagues, Sid Kiegeli and Miles Pompa and Vasily Tuganov. It deals with emerging and disruptive technologies in Russia, and particularly the way they are used in the war against Ukraine, and the proper role of missiles in that war. The third part of the book introduces arms control deadlock, of course, and whether there are possible ways out of that deadlock. And our good friends Nikolai Sokov, Lucas Kuleza, and Federica Dallarce from the VCDNP in Vienna address respectively the US-Russian arms control. Is it still needed? Is it still possible? The question asked by Nikolai Sokov. Strategic arms control deadlock, of course, by Lucas. And the gender perspective in arms control by Federica Dallarce, which is one of our good colleagues, very much specialized in those gender perspectives related to arms control. And the fourth part of the book addresses properly the NPT regime. Polina and Irina, you introduced that part with the nuclear deterrence in Russia's war on Ukraine, and this is probably the subject you chose, Polina, to address this morning. What you call the credibility dilemma. Adérito, Vicente deals with the future of nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, and Valeria S. addresses the U factor, wars on Ukraine and the deterrence versus disarmament discussion. And the last part of that big book of more than 250 pages is made of five contributions. The first one by Valentina Cassar about anchoring US-Russia relations. Tetiana Melnik addresses the NATO's new strategic concept. Valeria Gregorieva asks the following one: how did the Russian invasion influence Iran's approach to the nuclear threshold, which is a certainly very interesting subject to deal with. And Adérito, Vicente, and two of his colleagues, including Irina, address specifically the impact of Russia's war on Finland and Sweden's decision to join NATO. And if I'm correct, Irina will particularly address this topic this morning. And the conclusion by Adérito, Polina, and Julien Théron finishes the book on the challenges and the prospects of the current global nuclear regime. So it's a very comprehensive book you edited, Polina and Adérito. We have an hour and a half ahead of us, approximately, a little less. I suggest we start without further ado by giving the floor first to you, Polina. Then he has managed to reach us, provided he can, and I'm sure he will. I will give the floor to Adérito and finally to you, Irina, all three of whom will give us a presentation of the book, main ideas behind it, with, as I said, a particular focus on few points: the entry of Sweden and Finland into NATO, and the specific question of Russia's nuclear deterrence since the start of the war against Ukraine. It's, of course, that last topic is one topic we all discussed a lot last year and the year before that in France. In particular, we had some fine debates, I would say, about whether Russia's use of its deterrent force in the context of the current war is unprecedented or is particularly dangerous, and whether it is changing the word nuclear order and to what extent. And this is a debate that remains open today. Of course, we'll also be interested to know what the main ideas, I think, in this debate are in Ukraine, because we know the parameters, the factors, and the main ideas in France and maybe in Europe and in the NATO countries. But I think it would be a good idea if you also could, Irina and Polina, introduce a little bit the debate over that topic beyond, of course, what is being thought in your center, the OCD-NP in Odessa. So you will each have, let's say, around 12 minutes to present your arguments, and then we will have time to discuss your book together until 11:30 approximately. Everyone will, of course, be able from the room in FRS and online to ask any questions they like, and also to develop their proper arguments if they wish. But I think this is the interest of those book launches. So I will give the floor to each of you without making any particular comment, if you wish, between your speeches, so that we can concentrate our discussions at the end of your presentations, Polina and Irina and Adérito, when he is with us. And then that said, I think that Polina, the floor is yours, and I can see on my screen that 14 participants have joined us online, which is very great. Thank you very much to all of you to be with us, with others in the room at FRS. And so, Polina, the floor is yours, my dear.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. First of all, I also should be grateful to you for such a comprehensive introduction of the book. As one of the editors, I should do nothing because you did it in such a brilliant way. And also, I should be very grateful because you actually became one of the godfathers of this book, having recommended it to Springer. This is why Benjamin is standing in the head of this movement. And for me, it's a great pleasure that Benjamin is chairing this session. Speaking about the book, I will give the pleasure of comprehensive overview to Adérito, who will appear here sooner or later. As for myself, I would like to present my view on nuclear deterrence and whether something new was brought up, because there are still a lot of debates whether Russia's war in Ukraine has brought up something new in the theory of nuclear deterrence and in the practice of nuclear deterrence, or it's all good nuclear grammar developed during the Cold War. Well, of course, still, we should say that probably everything is based on this nuclear grammar, and then maybe it remains to be seen that anything will be developed. For me, the main interest was to explore on how nuclear deterrence and what role nuclear deterrence played during this war, at least during the first year of the war, which was very actively vocalized by different participants. Speaking about Russia, we would like to say that for Russia, it was one of the main tools of Russia's policy was, first of all, using this aggressive censurization function or offensive deterrence, where nuclear deterrence served as the umbrella to prevent anybody else to interfere in the conflict. And it was vocalized by President Putin in his statement when he announced the so-called special operation of Russia against Ukraine on the 24th of February of 2002, saying that anyone who interferes in the conflict would have the unprecedented consequences. On the other hand, A very strong cursive element, which was presented by Russia during the war, it should be also emphasized. And here it's very interesting to track how nuclear coercion was working regarding the West, regarding the United States, whom Russia is seeing as the main rival, and also the so-called collective West, and first of all, the three nuclear powers. I would be, I would suggest to divide this cursive presentation of Russia, I would say, in three parts, in three acts. The act one is the total success of nuclear coercion. Act two is the mixed success, mixed failure. And the act three is a mixed failure. And then, of course, it remains to be seen. The war is not ended now, and we'll see. But thinking about the first act, maybe the first days of the war, after Putin declared the operation, threatened with nuclear weapons, and then first missiles started to hit Ukraine. Ukraine immediately asked the West for the providing of the no-fly zone. And there was a plan that Poland could provide Ukraine with the MiG-21 bombers for using to defend itself against Russian missile attacks. However, 3 days later, on the 27th of February, Putin declared that he has put his nuclear forces on high alert, whatever it meant. Actually, it meant nothing because 2 years ago, I think in 2023, the head of the Russian NPT, of Russian delegation at the NPT conference said that it has never been happened. Nothing was put on high alert. So actually, it was a bluff, but this bluff attracted significant attention of the world leaders, in particular President Biden, who actually pressured Poland to cancel the deal on providing Ukraine with MiG bombers, and also who canceled the test of US ICBM, which was planned that days, not to provoke Russia, because the main slogan of Biden, even before the start of the war, was the main aim is to prevent the global nuclear war. And he was strictly adhering to this purpose, and maybe still a bit adhering to this, but maybe not that strictly. Of course, it was a pure success of Russian nuclear coercion. And I think that that inspired Russian leaders or Russian leader and others in Russia, Russian different commentators, to use nuclear so-called Trump every possible moment. And I think it was a bad strategy, which helped them to devaluate the cursive threat to some extent. Because next, I would say, act of Russian coercion is connected with the other speech of President Putin, which he had given in May of the 2022, when he said that that Russia is against of providing Ukraine with any long-range missiles, which would be able to hit Russian territory anyhow, because it would escalate conflict, and Russia would consider thinking of making strikes on the decision-making centers. The answer of President Biden was, well, no, the US is not going to provide Ukraine with ATACMS. However, as we know, others, especially the EU members and UK and France, were determined enough to provide Ukraine with the Storm Shadows and Scalp missiles, which has the same range as ATACMS. And well, since then, Ukraine was using them. And some successful operations were performed with the help of these missiles. So we can see that actually Russian coercion played partially, mostly on the United States and the European Union and the NATO states, especially nuclear powers. They started already thinking that coercion and that nuclear threat is not credible enough just to punish somebody for providing arms, and especially to punish the nuclear weapon state, because of course it's understandable that nuclear retaliation will follow, and Russia is not the one who is really interested in starting global nuclear war. No matter what Russian leader says, we all know that he's quite rational in the way he's perceiving himself, his own security, and his own life. Also, maybe it's worthwhile saying that the increase of supplies of the Western arms to Ukraine inspired Ukraine for some counteroffensive actions and counteroffensive operations, during which Ukraine managed to take back Kherson and some other territories, to push Russia away from Kiev and so on. It looked like nuclear coercion and nuclear threat were really not working against Ukraine. This is the separate case, because there are some theories, especially TV poll about nuclear non-use, who says that nuclear weapons are not, or nuclear deterrence is not working against non-nuclear states. Also, of course, Ukraine as a defender had a very strong, much stronger motivation. And the alternative was to die or to die, and then probably to die winning was much better than to die losing. This is why Russian coercion at the second stage showed its certain minuses, because of the fact that it was not really effective, it was not really working on 50, or I would say even 60, 70% regarding the potential opponents. And the Act 3 is one of the most interesting, and it was connected with the annexation of the Russian territories, Ukrainian territories by Russia. There were 4 Ukrainian regions which Russia annexed during the war. And giving the speech in September 2022, because of the annexation, on the eve of the annexation, Putin said that Russia is able to use whatever means available to defend those territories, to protect them from taking back. Which also was interpreted as one of the strongest hints on possibility of using nuclear weapons in case it would be necessary. And the most interesting was the reaction of the 3 nuclear powers, the United States, France, and UK, when they answered to this quite loud threat with the private channel messaging. Nobody really knows what in particular was told to Russians, because it was always kept in secret. However, we know that the main idea was that the United States, together with the 2 European allies, UK and France, threatened to perform some conventional strikes over Russian forces involved in nuclear operations against Ukraine, in case if it will happen. And after that, we can track that Putin completely stopped playing on nuclear threat, at least on nuclear escalation, because he kept on playing on other nuclear issues. After that, Putin declared that he never planned to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine. Also, Russian MFA in autumn 2022 also declared that it has never been such a plan, because it's not efficient, never been effective, and anything else, and never planned. An expedient. This is why I would say that this threat was very, very effective. Of course, there were no nuclear threats vocalized between those nuclear powers. But again, we all know that even the threat of conventional retaliation of the 3 nuclear states against the 4th nuclear state is always having this nuclear backup. This is why I would suggest that probably this nuclear backup was the most important element, which deterred Putin from any other planning of some adventures or nuclear adventures against Ukraine, from playing with nuclear escalation. And since then, the talks about nuclear escalation were coming only from former President Medvedev, who is actually nothing. He says whatever, and I think that he substituted one of the political members of the parliament, Zhirinovsky, who died, so he just needs to talk something to not to be forgotten, and also some kind of political commentators whose words also mean something. Now, since that moment, I would say that Russia understood that direct coercion based on the nuclear escalation has become quite dangerous for Russia, has become not very effective. And then they started to move on in different dimensions, in particular playing on the arms control system, killing arms control treaties one by one, starting from the New START, which was suspended, also coming to the nuclear weapon ban treaty. Also saying, which is okay, and this is something which carries the potential threat of nuclear testing in the future. However, Russia has not gone to these actions yet, because for now, as we see, the war entered certain deadlock where Ukrainian counteroffensive operation looks not super effective, but at the same time, Russians are not moving forward as well. It looks like we came to the stage of the long war, where which is quite beneficial for Putin, because he is hoping for changing of powers in the United States, first of all, for changing of modes in the public, and this is why he is not rushing. This is why during the last half a year, nuclear card a little bit was moved away, and Russia understood that it's not necessary to do it now. It goes on playing on the arms control system, and also we know that it has denied the new negotiations on the arms control for the future because of the Ukrainian war. But at the same time, it's quite possible to say that looking at this first year or year and a half of Russia's war in Ukraine, nuclear card played quite an active role. And at the same time, nuclear credibility was maybe the most important defining element of that nuclear coercion. First of all, the believability of Russian threat was measured by the Russian and the Western resolve. In the beginning, Russia demonstrated its resolve very brightly, and it's not in vain. Putin published his article about the unity of Russians and Ukrainians half year before the war. He demonstrated that Russians are having 100% of resolve to take Ukraine. But at the same time, when things went on the possibility of using nuclear weapons against Ukraine in any way, the resolve of the world nuclear powers increased substantially, because it's not only about Ukraine, it's about the nuclear world order, when one state can dictate the others the future structure of the world, or gaining his aims because of using nuclear weapons. It was about keeping the norm of non-use of nuclear weapons. And this is why it has become much more than just besides the fact that it was the security of one country, it went on much more, and it was about the security of the whole world order. This is why the credibility of the threats has become much more credible than the Putin ones. This is why we can say that, coming back to the main point we were trying to push forward in our chapter, I would like to say that the credibility of deterrence keeps on playing the main role, and it keeps on proving itself as the main engine and the main measurement tool of the nuclear deterrence effectiveness. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope I was enough. We still, I mean, I was on time. We still don't have Adérito, but let's hope we'll have him soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Polina, for reminding us first of the chronology of Russia's nuclear bluff since February 2022, and the way in which the coercive function of Russia's nuclear strategy has or has not worked since then. And this is, of course, part of our debate. This is a very open debate and a very tough debate we all have for 2 years with implications on the Russian way of considering its deterrence, but also on nuclear deterrence, generally speaking, and which will have and provide lessons for elsewhere in the world in this century, for sure. So for the moment, as I said, I'd like to hand over to your colleague. Well, I understand I hand over to Irina, unless Adérito has arrived in the meantime, but I don't think he has. So I will give the floor to you, Irina. Just something else for you, Polina, but I think we will have time to address this practical issue during our discussion. But at one point, it will also be good, just to inform our participants about the best way to obtain, to buy your book, of course, but we will see this later on. So at the moment, Irina, the floor is yours, and certainly Adérito will arrive during your presentation. Irina, your turn.
Thank you very much. And yes, it's a great privilege for me to represent this chapter. As your Benjamin already mentioned, it was like a co-authorship of Adérito Vicente, Muhammad Ali Al-Kish, and I contributed as well. So, and yes, it was a part of the fifth big chapter to our book, dedicated to regional implications of Russian war on Ukraine. And exactly we tried to discover just a second, some technical question appeared on my screen. Okay, so yes, we tried to scrutinize and to make some forecasts about how Russia's war on Ukraine impact the Finland and Sweden decision to join NATO, and what can be or could be effects of this decision on the global nuclear order. So there was two main tasks we tried to examine in our chapter. And of course, we started with the idea that, of course, Russia factor is played the crucial role for these two countries who traditionally maintain the foreign policy mostly related with non-alignment status. And this decision was something absolutely new for them. And of course, we try to pay attention not only on Russia as whole, as like an idea or a general factor, but how it provoked or which trigger Russia awaked and that pushed Finland and Sweden to join NATO. And here I would like to mention some of the factors. First of all, and the outcomes of Russia's influence. First of all, let me say that the Russia factor, it always played the role, the important role for foreign policy and defense policy or security and defense policy of Finland, and not so crucial. It was not so crucial for Sweden, but the situation has been changed a bit, not too much, and I will explain why a little bit later. Since 2014. Then Russia annexed Crimea and inspired the armed conflict on the western in the western Ukraine. I beg your pardon, eastern part of Ukraine. So in this case, yes, we also mentioned that the failure of Budapest Memorandum has also changed the situation. And in general, that led to the change of perception of Russia as a threat. Moreover, it was officially Finnish government's view posted in many reviews of security environment. And it was mentioned that the possibility to apply for membership remains a tool to master the geopolitical dilemma posed by an unpredictable neighbor. So since this period of time, Russia became an unpredictable neighbor. And this was one of the most important factors for Finland's decision to join NATO. As it was also mentioned there, any policy of neutrality is a thing of the past. So we can see how drastically change general perception of the security environment in Europe, but also defense approach to maintain, to strengthen security and defense of Finland, but also to some extent and Sweden. And in this case, we also have to mention the third factor. It's public opinion. The public opinion, Polina, can you try? Because I see that there should be one more slide on the
Let's see.
Yes, exactly, perfect. Thank you very much. So in exactly on this slide, you can see we did the research and did these charts exactly to show the readers and also distinguished audience now how the public opinion on NATO membership of these two countries changed since exactly 2014. It's the period then the both countries started to made some public opinion polls just to understand, and exactly because the debates within the countries raised, and it was very important for governments to understand the public opinion that which before was strictly opposed to NATO membership, both of these countries. But in this case, we can see that since 2014, the opposition gradually decreased till 2021. And we understand that that's related to the massive Russia's troops movement to the borders of Ukraine, but also to the many Putin's statement, but some of them Polina already mentioned in her presentation. And of course, we can see how drastically changed the public opinion and perception of future possible NATO membership of Finland and even Sweden during the first period of 2022. Unfortunately, we didn't find latest results of opinions. Maybe they didn't do that just because the decision was already taken and Finland and Sweden applied for NATO membership. But as for Ukraine, for example, these figures are very, very interesting, and they shows a lot how Russia's affect European security environment and the decision of these traditionally neutral or non-aligned countries. And Polina, can I ask you please back to the previous slide? Yeah, thank you very much. So, because the second point I would like also to mention in my presentation, it's about implication for global nuclear order, one of the main topic of our chapter or subchapter. So in this case, yes, we can say that, of course, our view based on that the changed security environment following Russian invasion on Ukraine affect Finland and Sweden decision to become a member of nuclear alliance. That means that the general perception of confrontation or aggression from nuclear weapon state against non-nuclear weapon states become more predictable, not predictable, but more possible in perception of other countries. And we also suggest that for many countries, and we can see some statements from different countries as well, we didn't mention in our chapter, but in general, we can see that the nuclear weapons, again, start to perceive as the most reliable tool for security guarantees. And of course, these also can impact current and future global nuclear order. First of all, it can lead to the more countries that would like to join nuclear alliances, or at least to get legally binding negative security assurances, but also positive security assurance as well, to avoid a possible, even conventional confrontation with nuclear weapon states. Also, the possible effect can be related to new arms race. With regard to, again, the Russia's president's statements and nuclear blackmail. In this case, also, we can say that a lot of statements made by President Putin, but also other Russian officials, refer to equal response from Russia to NATO extension, enlargement, or particular to Finland membership to NATO. For example, in July 2016, the President Putin, answering question to Finnish correspondent, said that Moscow would reposition its troops if Helsinki joined the alliance. And of course, all these statements about tactical Russia's tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, the massive military exercises in Belarus as well. That was one of the that can be perceived as examples of such kind of coercion policy and also blackmail and so on. And in general, the third factor I would like to mention, it's also potential harming the global nuclear disarmament agenda and the non-proliferation regime. As we know, Sweden was one of the most active supporter of TPNW, and now its position can be a little bit weaker due to joining to a nuclear alliance. But in general, of course, it would be like the first considerations and outcomes we could do in in the beginning of 2023. So I would like also, as you, Benjamin, mentioned, that to follow the discussions you have had in the FRS this last year, with regard to the impact of Finland and Sweden NATO membership on nuclear global order and the security environment in general. But for now, I will stop here and thank you for your attention. And Adérito, nice to see you.
Merci beaucoup, Irina. Thank you very much, Irina, for your good presentation on this very topical and particular and specific subject. Finland and Sweden's request to join NATO has, I really believe, been rightly analyzed as proof, a deep sign of the credibility of the Atlantic Alliance for European security, which is itself a very good sign and a very good thing, especially coming from two Scandinavian countries, as we know, and for Russian strategy as a whole, which claims that NATO in particular is and was the reason for going to war. This was naturally a major setback for Russian strategists. The truth is that while NATO was no longer expanding, it has become so again as a result of the action-reaction dynamic initiated by a Russian defense initiative. And this is undoubtedly an important lesson for the future and also a sign of the vitality of the alliance that has been so criticized since the end of the Cold War for its supposed uselessness at that time. And it is clear from the graphs that you show us that it is a phenomenon that has affected not only the political elites in these two countries, but also public opinion. So I really believe that these two demands will have a major impact on the future of the alliance for the foreseeable future, at least, as a stable security and defense framework for the European security architecture. And that being so, despite what is often said about a supposed American disengagement from the alliance. This is another subject. So I also understand that Adérito Vicente has joined us. Thank you for joining us, Adérito, and bravo, despite the bad weather conditions. So, Adérito Vicente, for those who do not know you, you are a political scientist holding a PhD in political and social sciences from the European University Institute in Florence, Italy. And at the moment, you are currently a non-resident fellow at the Odessa Center for Proliferation, the ODCNP, and a researcher at Political Observatory. So we are very happy to have you as a speaker, since you are one of the three editors of that new volume at Springer. So now, Adérito, and this is the first time we meet. Unfortunately, we cannot meet, you and I, physically, because I could not join FRS this morning for the bad weather conditions, but we will have other opportunities, I'm sure. So at the moment, the floor is yours, Adérito, for around 10 to 15 minutes for the presentation of your part of the book. Thank you very much, and then we will
thank you, Benjamin, for this introduction. I look forward also to meet you. And thank you all for hosting this event and supporting us. I would like also to say that I'm sorry that I came late. There was a problem.
Yes. There is a problem. I don't know.
Yes,
why.
there is a problem. We can't see you anymore. Can our good friends from the FRS fix this?
We are trying to fix it. Okay. No.
Let's just
Okay, good. Here we are.
Okay, so I was saying, I don't know if you saw, I heard that I was thanking you for hosting this, and I look forward to meet you one day. And I would like to apologize that I came late, but it was due to unfortunate conditions of the weather between Brussels and Paris. I was supposed to arrive at 9 o'clock in Paris, but the weather conditions. But now I'm here, and I'm very happy to also present this book that I did with Polina and Julien. And of course, we invited around 16, 17 authors. I'm going to do basically a holistic approach of our book, because I understand that. How can I switch it? So I would like to just provide a small introduction to to the book. So our objectives mainly, as you can see in the PowerPoint, our first objective was to explore and understand the main reasons for studying this significant and contemporary topic, which I think unfortunately is going to be around for some time. Secondly, we would like to illustrate which are the fundamental nuclear implications brought by the Russia's war in Ukraine, and also to define global nuclear order in our own definition, and explain its current form, and also with the help of other authors to provide answers, perspectives, and additional guiding questions for how Russia's war in Ukraine changed the global nuclear order. Yeah, so basically we divided the book in 5 parts. So the first is dedicated to the new challenges and threats of global nuclear order. We had 2 Ukrainian scholars, Sergei Galaka and Olga, and Julien, of course, one of the editors. So they exploit this, the challenge and the threat to the global nuclear order. After we answered to the question, how has Russia's war on Ukraine changed the global nuclear order? Then the part 2, we discussed the missile and disruptive technologies with Sitki, that explores more disruptive technologies, and Miles Popper and Vasily, they explore more the question of the missiles. Then we discussed on part 3 arms control and deadlock, possible ways out, and we have different scholars from different nationalities. We had Nikolai Sokov, Lucas Kuleza, and Federica. Each one had a specific approach towards this topic. And then on the part 4, we basically discussed the the different narratives around deterrence and disarmament. So Polina and Irina, they discussed more through the nuclear deterrence lens. I discussed more the future of non-proliferation disarmament regime, and Valeria makes the debates with the 2 dimensions, and also she also dedicates a part to the BMW. And then the 5 part, we selected some cases where the war has an impact. Of course, we didn't have time to put other cases, but we thought about putting also North Korea, and now if the book was done before, probably also the Middle East. But we exploit the questions regarding the perspectives with Valentina between US and Russia, and then Tatiana focused on NATO. Valeria focused on the question of Iran, and I and Ali and Irina, as Irina already mentioned, I guess, because I just saw the last part of her presentation. We exploit the impact of the war on the decision of Sweden and Finland to go to NATO, and then in the end we basically present the findings of the whole book, and make our conclusion in the end of the book. So basically, that was more or less what we did. I would like also to mention. I would like also to mention that we believe that one of the interesting aspects of this book is to, as I mentioned before, is to define what is global nuclear order in our own words, how that global nuclear order was affected by this war. So we mentioned that even though things were not perfect before the invasion of Russia, especially in the disarmament sphere of the order, we identify two aspects of this nuclear global order. So one aspect is more focused on the order by deterrence. So we focus on William Walker view that the system of deterrence, where states, usually the P5 and other states that have nuclear weapons, they with their practices and rules, they define so this order, and then we go to the system of abstinence, which is more focused on the NPT regime, and that part we also mentioned that the regime is at risk. So in the first part, we mentioned that the war eroded some of the so-called deterrence practices. We believe that in the first, I don't know, I think I believe already that Polina has talked about this.
Enough.
Okay, good. So the other part regarding the NPT regime, which is the order more controlled by rules and norms, we think that is completely eroded at the moment, especially the disarmament field. We are witnessing the rise again of expanding of nuclear arsenals around the world. It's very problematic what is happening in China. They are using this event to, for example, to expand. I don't know if you already read the last report on the nuclear weapons that they have. They increased a lot. That means that they have this, probably they have this strategy of wanting to have the same weapons as the United States and Russia. That explains a lot. Also, their behavior in the Conference on Disarmament with Pakistan and the question with India about the FMCT and all that. We also exploit that in our book. So it's really problematic. We also see the spread of new nuclear umbrella states, Finland being one. Sweden probably is going to be the next, and the Sweden case is more problematic for the NPT regime, in my view, because for the past 50 years, Sweden has been one of the big proponents of nuclear disarmament and actually funding a lot of programs around the world. And now they switch due to the war, and we explained in our last chapter that they change completely. They view, even though they say that they are going to go to NATO to promote nuclear disarmament, which is Hail Mary, in my view, due to the current contradictions. So that is actually might create in some countries that might see other nuclear powers or great powers around their neighborhood, their willingness to ally to another nuclear power. So that is one of the things. Another thing is, like, probably we are witnessing also the spread of nuclear sharing states. We are already seeing, for example, Belarus in the side of Russia as CSTO. They already they basically ripped the Budapest Memorandum, and now they are a nuclear sharing state, in my view. Also, probably we don't know if Finland wants to be one. We don't know if they were given assurances. We know that Poland, already a NATO state, nuclear umbrella state, wants to one as well. So we are seeing also the question of South Korea and Japan. They also they're in the same path. And of course, the rise of disruptive technologies. How can they really affect the deterrence and norms, both. And when I say disruptive technologies, not just the hypersonic weapons, but also artificial intelligence. Are we prepared to not to be one day, not now, but in the future, not the ones that do doctrine on deterrence, but one day we have artificial intelligence doing for us. So that will also is the case. And of course, well, this is basically some ideas. I didn't put it by order, but this is some of the things that we discussed during the book. So I think from my side, I already presented some of the issues that we have on the book, and I explored some questions, and I look forward to your questions and comments on our presentation. And we look forward, if you haven't read the book, you can read it, or if you want to read some of the chapters, you can also do it. So I look forward to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adérito, for your presentation of the whole book. I had already introduced those parts, but you could come into more details. We still have 12 people in our online audience and others in the room with you. I have one comment. For the moment, I have one comment and one question. Mark, our good friend Mark Hibbs, joined us, and he asked a question. Actually, I would have asked the same if he had not. Mark's asks, you conclude, Adérito, that China wants the same number of weapons as the United States. Did you say that? And we both, Mark and I, ask you, did we hear you correctly about it? And the other point is a comment by Johannes Alfeld. I read it to all of you. Thanks for improving the sound. That was to me because I tried to improve the sound of our meeting. And he has a question for you, Polina. Your presentation, Polina, suggested that Putin's nuclear threats were completely incredible as ultimately self-destructive. And Johannes would agree with a view to the early phase of the war when he tried to scare NATO away. But if faced with the possibility of losing, he adds, when Ukrainian troops would be pushing Russian forces out of the annexed republics, entre guillemets, I would not be so sure. So he would not be so sure. Putin has stated the context of debating the military doctrine that a world without Russian empire would not be worth living in. And he has demonstrated more than one that he wants to be perceived unpredictable by taking risky decisions. This was true in 2014 and 2022, that even regime forces did not consider feasible. So this is the comment by Johannes Alfeld. Can you both answer the first question, and Polina comment and answer that second comment if you wish. Thank you very much.
Maybe because
Okay,
we were just talking.
Okay, go.
Okay, I will try to be more visible. Benjamin, you will remind me if I have missed something, because I have concentrated on the first one, speaking about Putin's nuclear coercion and how credible his nuclear threats are in the face of the perspective of losing. As I understand, especially from the comments of the US State Department people, they said that in the private communication, Russians on the official level always say that they are going to adhere to the Russian official nuclear deterrence posture issued in 2020, where it said that Russia is going to use nuclear weapons in the conventional war only in case if Russian survival is in jeopardy, or Russian existence is in jeopardy. So speaking about Ukraine taking back territories which were annexed after the 24th of February 2022, I don't think, and some other experts of Russia like Arbatov, they don't think that those territories are the essence of Russian survival anyhow, because Russia existed out of those territories and will go on exist with them altogether. So even taking back those territories is not presenting any kind of inherent threat to the Russian regime, Russian survival, or whatever. On the other hand, I am completely sure that Ukraine is not going to reach Moscow and to remove the regime from power. It's just impossible. This is why when we are speaking about taking back territories which were annexed after the 24th of February, I think it's quite probable to do it without any kind of nuclear use. Of course, there can be some nuclear threats, but I don't think that it will reach nuclear use, because having reached the point of nuclear use, Putin will face the dilemma of confronting three other nuclear states, such as US, France, and the UK. And then it's hardly possible to imagine that this situation will be resolved without using two nuclear weapons. In this regard, if we look at the Putin's personality, well, looking at throughout of the whole Russian or Putin time being in power, we cannot find any moment when he behaved risky, right? He was annexing Crimea, but there was no risk for Russia. He attacked Georgia, but it was just zero risk for Russia. He attacked Ukraine just because he was persuaded by his special services, by the FSB, that it will be done in 3 weeks and it will be easy and safe. So Putin never did anything which put his regime on the verge of survival. And coming closer to the possibility of nuclear war, even through the conventional confrontation between the big nuclear powers, it really means risky. Of course, he may bluff that he's determined to do something, but of course, you can never be completely sure in anything, but I don't think that he will be that much determined for any kind of nuclear adventures, since he would not be sure that the other side of that would be his removal from power. So, because he may go to some adventurous actions in case if he'll be sure that, for example, Ukraine is taking back Donbass, and then it directly shifts him from power. If Ukraine takes back Donbass and it's not shifting him from power, then for him there is the alternative to survive and to go on as a Russian leader, or to possibly die in case of some nuclear complications, right? So he will always put on his own survival and his own physical safety. Here, I'm sure. This is why I think that Putin may go on blackmailing with nuclear use, but he will be quite cautious. What Russia can really do in this regard, in case if Ukraine goes on with the counteroffensive operation and takes back territories, he can go on canceling the partial test ban treaty and then make a big nuclear test. I would say even not underground, but on site in Novaya Zemlya, just to demonstrate that Russia is ready for nuclear use. It will not be anything. I mean, it will not be the escalatory step, but it will be probably concentrated on making the strong impressions on the public of the West and to increase the pressure over the ruling powers to settle the fear. Because Russians, in their hearts, they are completely sure that in the competition of capabilities, they are, of course, not the winners. But in the competitions of resolve, they are pretty much the most determined nations. And this is why they will be very interested to settle this fear among the Western public, to perform pressure, and then to make the West to do something to stop this war as fast as possible. It's still not about nuclear weapons use, but it's about the use of fear of using nuclear weapons. Here, I'm sure they can go very far and they can go to the brink to do whatever, to manipulate with this fear, because nuclear deterrence is the only secret and the main trump Russia is having. And I'm sure they are not going to damage themselves because of nuclear deterrence. As you say that there was a quote that the world doesn't need, we don't need the world without Russia. But we are not speaking now about the world about Russia. We are speaking about the world with Ukraine, right? So the aim of this war is to secure the survival of Ukraine, not to destroy Russia as the state. We are not going to demolish Russia. We are not going to remove Putin from Moscow. It's the matter of what Russians should do or not do. It's their own life. This is why this is not about survival of Russia. This is just Russia being defeated in the war on annexing Ukrainian territories or on destroying Ukraine as an independent state. This is what I mean. This is why I don't think that Russians are going to do some crazy things just in case of the successful counteroffensive operation.
Okay, Irina, Polina, just before giving the floor to Adérito on the first question we had, Mark and I, Johannes Alfeld has a second question. Maybe quickly, can you answer that? Because it's the following, actually, to what you have just answered. Do you think, he asks, Putin would survive being defeated by Ukraine? Removal from power may come in a similar form as the removal of Prigozhin. This is the question. Do you have an answer for that, which is beyond, of course, the nuclear field, but as a specialist and as a Ukrainian researcher, maybe you can also answer that quickly.
I can't really imagine who can remove Putin from power. Because he has destroyed any even half healthy opposition. So there is nobody even in the elections who will gain even 5%, because there are no competitors for Putin. So unless he will at some point end his life physically because of the natural reasons, I don't really believe it's possible, and somebody in Russia is determined to do that. Maybe we don't know something. Of course, there are always, things which are out of our mind and understanding. But now I don't see the alternative. Who will really be able to unite Russians and to say that, yes, I'm a leader? There is no any kind of possible legitimate leader except him for now, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you, Polina, for your answer. So, Adérito, do we heard you correctly when we heard that China would want the same number of weapons, nuclear weapons, as the United States, please?
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to clarify this issue, especially thank you for the question. So I'm just gonna answer in two ways. First, what we answer, or what I answer in the book, and what I think is happening now. So what we mention in the book is that China is involved in great power competition, aligned in the so-called New World Order with Russia, and is taking advantage of this issue with the Russia's war on Ukraine, also to cement as an alternative power, in my view. What we also say is that all countries that have nuclear weapons, they are modernizing their arsenals, and we don't know about the US yet, and also Russia, but all other countries, they are increasing their quantitative arsenals, so including China. So why I brought China now? Because now we have some kind of a proof. So recently, I don't know if you know, that the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists said that China increased at least 200 nuclear weapons from the last year to now. So last year they have like around 300 nuclear weapons. Now they have 500. And also in this assessment that they made, they said China will continue to increase it. So in my view, when I was doing my PhD research, I went to Geneva and to understand the dynamics about the FMCT in the Conference on Disarmament. I understood between the lines what might be China's interest on this. So as you know, the FMCT is a treaty that would ban the production of nuclear fissile material, that is important to build nuclear weapons. What that treaty doesn't say is that the countries that already have that material would not eliminate. They will maintain that material. So one of the reasons why Pakistan is against this treaty is because India has a lot of quantities of this material, and if this treaty would enter into force, they would be in a balanced position to produce more nuclear weapons, because there's a kind of so-called parity between India and Pakistan. Why China is behind? Because China is already signaling, for example, in the nuclear suppliers group, they are against the entrance of India in that group, because also of these reasons, these dynamics with Pakistan, and also antagonisms with India, should I say, regional antagonisms. So in my view, it's the interest of China. This is my view. I don't have proofs, but in my view, it is in the interest of China that the FMCT doesn't enter into force, because they want fissile material, like Pakistan, to produce nuclear weapons. And of course, if this treaty enters into force, they cannot do that, because because they have large quantities of fissile material already, uranium at least, in China. I think they want parity. And now you ask me why they want parity with the United States and Russia. Because in the goal to China become a great power, they have already some parity with the United States in terms of economics and trade and finance, but they are still struggling with the political power and the military power. So from the political power, of course, they have to do other things, like increasing their ways of expressing their power through other means, like through art and entertainment, like the United States have been doing since the end of the Second World War with the Hollywood, music, and all. Also, that's why the reason most of the people now use English. So that's a way of expressing political power, soft power. And of course, when they do that, they also express their values, even though we don't, it's a given thing. So China has a lot to do in that regard. But in question of military power, they are already aligned, in my view, conventionally. They try to catch up with the United States. Of course, there are issues regarding technology. The United States has an avant-garde in that field of technological field that provides new weaponry, including II. But I think also China is in that territory much better than the Europeans, because we have full of regulations that will not enable us to progress in that field. But anyway, so in that field, China is trying to have parity. The only thing that China doesn't have parity is in the nuclear field with the United States and Russia. And in my view, they want that to become a great power. Because at the moment, they don't have, in my view, mutual assured destruction capability with the United States. So therefore, they want to achieve that in order to also become another power, because that's the only thing, and not being dependent on Russia. And that will be, and then in that moment, we'll find out if this Russia alliance that basically sustainable is just sustained in the fact that they have a common enemy, which is the United States, will resist or not. But then we are here to, if we are alive, to discuss this.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Adérito. For the moment, we don't have other questions, and we are 2 minutes ahead of the end of our meeting. Just a comment, if you wish, on that Chinese issue, which is far away from the Ukrainian and Russian matters as far as nuclear weapons is concerned. But I have to add to that first, there is nothing simple about Chinese decision-making or about Chinese doctrine, even if they would like us to believe that the doctrine is simple. When it comes to nuclear weapons, the level of the Chinese arsenal is at least a technical question, a political question, and a strategic question. And as far as I know, the rate of increase of China's arsenal has not yet been decided in Beijing. There are still, according to the last information I have, 3 schools of thought in Beijing. There are those who want a status quo. There are those who want a rapid increase, and those who want a reasoned increase. And it would appear, but it's uncertain, that the decision taken is for a slow increase in the arsenal rather than a rapid increase between now and 2030. But this is a question which it's above all, I think, important to bear in mind that it remains very much an open question in Beijing itself at the moment. That being said, we are 11:30, and I think, Polina, that we don't have other questions in the Q&A nor in the no, sorry. We have a comment by Mark Gibbs 2 minutes ago. Mark says, Polina, thanks for your views and information. I have one more question for you, which is related to his research. So, Polina, this is a question, the last question for you. If Russia, he asks, aims to annex Ukrainian territory, isn't Russia's destruction of Ukrainian infrastructure a contradiction of that aim? Russian actions may, in effect, long-term destroy 6 nuclear power plants in Zaporizhia, worth many billions of euros. Same with the water supply. Russia is willing to inherit a Ukraine whose infrastructures is destroyed? He asks. So this is a last question for you from Mark Gibbs. Thank you, Mark, for that.
Mark, shortly, I think yes. They destroyed Mariupol almost to the scratch, and they are building the new Mariupol there. It's not a problem for them. This is not the matter of money. This is a matter of honor. This is a matter of belief and the ideology that this is their territory. So if possible, they will try to preserve, let us say, nuclear power plant. But if not, they can build up the new one. It's not about money. It's about the principle, matter of principle.
Wow. Okay, so this is a pessimistic view, and I hope this is not our last pessimistic conclusion, because Polina, if you wish, we have now come to the end of our meeting, and I'd like to give you the floor to say your last words, my dear Polina, and I'd like to thank you all once again for taking part in the launch of this very valuable new book in our common field of research. Polina, the floor is yours, and then I will close.
Oh, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much, FRS, for providing us the opportunity to give this presentation. Thank you very much, Benjamin, for chairing this session. Well, if you don't want me to be pessimistic, well, let's hope that we won't get to the point when Putin is taking the whole Ukraine destroyed, because I don't think that he has the capabilities now. The main idea is to keep the territories he has already annexed, and maybe to reach the geographic parts. At least we hope so. And at the same time, it's not only about the hopes, it's also about the support of the West and the supply of the weapons. Sooner or later, at least Putin will end up. And sooner or later, Russia, as it happened after the war in Afghanistan, will look at the losses and understand that it was a brutal and useless war for the Russian people. So we should sustain during that time, and that will help us to survive in the future and to keep the structure of international relations from that kind of idea that any brutal force matters more than anything else in this world. Otherwise, it will bring us back to the realistic, the purely, severely realistic notion that nothing matters except the brutal power, and that's it. This is why I hope that there's still much more those who are against that principle than Russia and Russians and Putin and Putinists. And this is why I believe we will overcome someday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Polina, for those last words. So with this, I think we can close that book launch. Thank you to all of you for joining, for your very good participation and questions. Thank you very much to you, Polina, of course, to you, Adérito, for joining us despite the bad weather conditions, and Irina Maximenko, who is always very welcome to our meetings. So thank you very much. Good luck with the launch of that very valuable book, and see you all very, very soon for new debates on the auspices of the Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique with the OCDNP in Odessa. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Benjamin. And thank you, Perez, for hosting us. It was great pleasure to present our book, and have a nice day and great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Irina. And Polina, have a good trip to Roma tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Adérito. See you.